feeding valve. Coming to the most commonly used valve is the bicuspid valve. The three orifices here. The center is the most narrowest, and the gradients. When you have to measure it through. You do not measure gradients here because it overestimates the gradients and areas because of the pressure recovery principle. You can see the valve opening here, the transmittal flow, valve closed, these are the washing jets. They have one central and many various peripheral jets depending on what angle you're looking at the valve. The lower down is the 3D image of the washing jets and the valve closure. So this valve has a least homogeneity, a larger closing volume here and more combination. The other valve is the King-Tex valve, which is typically having two orifices of different sizes, always graded measured to the bigger orifice. This has largest stagnation area. The opening angle here, the opening angle here is lesser than the bicuspid valve, so it has greater impedance, greater gradients, larger stagnation area. And the Medtronic Hall valve has a larger central jet. Most of the washing jets, they have several washing jets in the periphery. The Medtronic has a single washing jet center also apart from this. This is a ball and cage valve, it's rarely used now, not much in practice. It can be used in mitral, it has a cage here. And balls, elastic ball, this is the valve is closed, here it's open. There is several limitations of this, it has greater hemolysis. Greater area stagnation area, greater chance of thrombosis, thromboembolism, thrombotic occlusion of the valve, and one of the most important limitations is the high profile of the valve. So if you put the valve in the microablation, there is a possibility it can obstruct the aorta. If you put it in the aortic equation, there is a possibility if not placed well, it can obstruct the sinuses as well. So there are different specifications of various valves, different companies make it. They differ in your opening angles, closing angles, the type of material used for the leaflet, the shape and size of the leaflets. One of the valves here, all mechanical valves require anticoagulation. One of the valves here, Onyx commonly used, they claim they require lesser anticoagulation. There's tissue valves, again, coming to tissue valves, two types, stented and these are different stented and stentless valves. You can see here the stented valves, tissue valves, stentless one here. For the echo images for stented valve, you can see the struts here. These are two struts and the valve opens here and closes here. But if there is a stentless valve, it looks more like a native valve. It's very difficult to make out from the echo whether it's a native or stentless valve. What you can see is a little thickening of the annulus here, and you can see the thickening of the sinus of sinuses. The stented, there's the two types as I said, stented and stentless tissue valves. The stented are the aortic porcine valves. Porcine on the right hand side, you can see the Medtronic valve, where the Medtronic Hancock, which is standard aortic porcine valve, as per se is placed here, so there are limitation of sizes of those used. And on the left hand side, you see the pericardial valves. Pericardial valves are primarily bovine, there's a capitate words perimount magna, or they can be pericardial bovine as well as porcine. What is this? They do not require anticoagulations. Any valve studying valve will have gradients through it. So the valve here I would like to highlight as the perimount here, which actually has the best durability and the best hemodynamic profile and least gradients. The perimount magna is even bigger and has even more favorable gradients. So these leaflets, the problem with these valves is durability. The leaflets, pericardial leaflets had been treated with chemical agents so that they last long with anti-calcium calcification agents. So initially after bypass, the valve is stiffer and you may get the central jet, which is normal and very harmless. Central bypass valves, on the left hand side you have the first generation valve or porcine. You can see the different shapes it can be implanted. This is the St. Jude Medical Toronto. It has a subcoronary, different shapes here, cuts here because it can be implanted subcoronally. This has a entire root here, so you can just replace the valve root totally here. This is the Medtronic freestyle Edward Primus here. So primarily porcine valve, but currently we have other valves, also stentless valves, which are made from bovine, sorin feeder, bovine pericardium, and here is the equine pericardium. Here is the ATS, 3F ATS valve. So other valves are stentless are the homograph, the graphs from the humans as well. From the deceased donors, you can have it preserved well. If you preserve quite well and quite early, they have a very good durability. They might not require anticoagulation. And ideal choice for replacing the valve in the infective endocarditis where you require the wider intervals. Other thing is autograph, the Ross procedure, where you put the patient whole graft from the pulmonary to the aortic side. mainly done in children, and a homograph there in the pulmonary side, mainly good choice in children, so that they have a less chance of reuse surgeries. But yeah, the procedure is quite complicated, and you got to take into consideration that as well when you decide. The obvious choice between mechanical and bioprosthetic, at the age you go for bioprosthetic valves. These are because they don't require anticoagulation, and they might, as the elders, may not be able to tolerate the anticoagulation. Also, the structural valve deformity or dysfunction or degeneration is lesser in the elder group as in younger group. So, by and large, general less than 60 is here, more than 60 is mechanical, less than 60 bioprosthetic. There is the middle chunk of people that we need to figure out what it needs to be. The other are the percutaneous valves. This can be put transfemorally, or it can be put through with a mini thoracotomy and transapically. Left side is the valve which is balloon implantable and balloon inflatable valve on the left hand side, and the right hand side is the core valve, which is self-implantable. When you do for the echo part, we have coming to echo part, what we require from the echocardiologist. Before the tower, we require an appropriate echo to understand what is the sizing of the valve. In front of procedure echo, we require to find the gradients across the valves, the leaks, and deployment. The deployment. So here you see the 3 types. Here you see the transvalvular leak. Here the paravalvular leak around the valve here. And here this is a third kind of leak. Recently they said there is a supraskirtal leak. The leak arises around the valve on the top of the skirt out here. This is how it looks. So this occurs when primarily they say when the valve is inserted too low, not in optimum site. Too much into LVOT might cause that. So how does for the echo part of it, how does it look? On fully, when you've got the valve is deployed, it should look round out here, not a word out here. The word is wrong. So once you do this, if it's not round, you need to inflate it further or reposition the valve. Here you see this is the valve, it's ideal position, not too much into LVOT. On the left hand side, this is not a right position. Is this valve comes too much into LVOT, this might give chance the chances to form the supraskirtal regurgitation. Again, you see the end on view here, paravalvular leaks. Here, more than 20%, more than 30% are significant leaks, and we'll discuss this, the gradation of this in the subsequent slides. Any velocity less than 2 meters per second is fine. All these mechanical valve comes with normal physiological jets, they are benign, they don't cause any alteration or worsening of the cardiac pressure and gradients or the chamber sizes. So they are short lasting here, they are narrow at the origin, they don't go long, too long into the LA. They're short lasting, aliasing confined only to the jet of this thing, just near the origin. There's more symmetrical, homogeneous, and they protective to prevent the formation of thrombus out here. So as I said, the bioprosthetic valves, they do not have the washing jets, but initially a period of early bypass, you might have a central jet because the valves get softened up because of the due to IPA or IV preservation engines that are used, and the valves are resistive for that time. Yeah, we just quickly go through a few complications how they look for the echocardiography. Here this panel on the left hand side, thrombus on the right hand side. If you see the left hand side, the equipment is more ecodense. Here is less ecodense out here. This is panus and this is the thrombosis. Panus mainly starts late onset. Thrombosis can have early onset. Panus mainly involves the sewing ring. Very rarely it comes out of reflex, maybe in the later stages. Thrombus can have straight away into the reflex. Attenuation, if we have any problem differentiating two from the echo, we can do the CT. The panus has a greater attenuation index than the thrombosis. Endocarditis is the complication here. You can see how it can present. You can have several agitations here. They can bases of valve with paravalvular regurg. Out here, there can be abscesses in the root. You can see a thickened root here, thickened annulus. So the diagnosis is relevant whenever there is a paraprostatic heart valve or any device. The choice agent, the modality of choice is TE. Even if the initial T is negative, but clinical suspicion is high, the T needs to be repeated later after 7 days again. So the other thing what you need to see is the PPM, the patient-prostatic mismatch. So before we come to that, that's one of the things where we need to ascertain and rule out as cardiac endocrinologists. Before we come to that, I just like to explain what is the two terms, EOA, effective orifice area, and TEI. The EOA, effective orifice area, the outer diameter of the valve is too big, it cannot be used to find the area of the valve. So So effectively what area is available for the flow to occur is the EOA, effective orifice area. It can be from the aortic valve, it can be easily got from this formula. The stroke volume upon the prosthetic valve VTI will give the EOA. So if you have aortic valve, put in the aortic valve VTI, you put a Doppler, continuous Doppler there, trace this thing, get a VTI. And if you divide the stroke volume by the VTI of the aortic, you get the aortic prosthetic valve EOA. If you do the VTI of the across the mitral valve, you will get a EOA across the prosthetic mitral valve. On the right hand side, so when you want to calculate stroke volume, calculate the area, you need a LVOT diameter. Sometimes when you put a prosthetic valve in situ, you cannot see the LVOT borders clearly. There can be technical errors and the struts as the edge to edge technique. So there can be calculation errors because the pi r square, the area gets doubled and the error can get doubled as well. So we have a modality where you don't take the dimensions into place. You just compare the ratios of the two velocities across the aortic and mitral, or the LVOT and the prosthetic valve. And there you get this thing called the Doppler velocity index, because you put Doppler or a dimensionless velocity index. So if you for the aortic valve, you do the LVOT VTI upon aortic VTI, to get the aortic DVI. Lesser the DVI, more severe the stenosis. For mitral valve, the ratio is mitral upon the LVOT VTI, so more severe the stenosis, you will get a higher value of DVI. So higher value of DVI in mitral is bad, lower value of DVI in aortic is bad. So perioperative approach, we need to find out whether the native valve, where the patient can have valvular heart disease, and the prosthetic already has prosthetic valve, and there is a dysfunction, we need to evaluate that. Primarily, we'll come to that in the next subsequent slides. And post coming on bypass, we need to evaluation whether evaluate the new valve is placed all right. There is no patient prosthesis mismatch, defects are going well, no critical, etc. Post bypass, we can also make out as echocardiography where the mitral valve is put, there is no involvement of left circ area, because the mitral should involve the stitches out there. You do other things, what you call intercardiac air management. And you cannot ignore the other things, other measurement of the chambers and other valve chambers, pressures, pulmonary hypertension, etc. The pulmonary pressure, etc. That needs to be evaluated. So what do you look for in a evaluation of valve? First of all, you want to see the 2D imaging. The leaflets are moving well. There's no regurgitation. The gradients are fine, not too much regurg. There's something called, apart from that, you need to note what date was the valve put, what was the reason for the valve was changed, what type of valve was put. These all data needs to be compiled and it should be with the patient each time for comparison for subsequent echoes. One of the important things what we cannot forget is the BSA, the height, weight of patient, body surface area, because that's important how to calculate the patient prosthesis mismatch. So what is patient prosthesis mismatch? The prosthetic valve or report is too small for the patient. It cannot accommodate higher gradients and higher cardiac output when the patient requires exercises and when it requires higher cardiac output, it cannot meet his requirements. So that's called the inadequate or inappropriate size valve, a smaller valve is required. So you find out the effective orifice area from the earlier equation, and you see and you get that each valve has a reference area, you compare with that, they'll be almost same or maybe the EOA is slightly less. But what is the most classical defining parameter for is the index EOA. So you find effective measure the EOA, divide by body surface area, you get the index effective orifice area. So this is the one which is the least which is decreased, which is decreased in the percent mismatch. And the rest of the thing, the DVI, the EOA, DVI remains normal. Also, if you check the leaflet morphology on the echo or sinofluoroscopy or the CT, you see the leaflets are normal. So leaflets are normal, DVI are normal, the velocity ratio is normal, but only the IEOA is reduced. That means there's a prosthetic mismatch. Just if the gradient is still high, DVI is normal, if the leaflets are also abnormal, then we go in favor that there is a patient prosthesis mismatch plus valve dysfunction. So if the low flow state, we might not get high gradients. So in that case, we have to do stress echocardiography. Again, if you see in this as well, the index EOA will still be on the slightly lower side, a little lesser side for the patient prosthetic mismatch, but for the intrinsic defect, the DVI will still be normal. On the other side, if there is intrinsic defect, the DVI and this thing will be much more reduced than the reference values in the intrinsic defect. So these are the things if you graded. For the different, as I said, I index EOA is for particular valve, is the aortic on top, there's the mitral numbers on top, anything more than 0.85, less than 0.5 is problematic. Anything less than greater than 1.2 indicates PPM. But again, as I said, this has to be less than, we have to take the weight and BMI investigation, less than 30, more than 30, the values are different. Consequences, mild PPM does not affect much, it is okay, moderate to severe is a problem with the patient, especially the is low. Problems can, the hemodynamics can be compromised, the less regulation will be LDH, will be hypertension, post-op, and glucose. There can be a greater chance of cardiac events and lower survival and faster deterioration of the bioprosthetic valves. So how do you measure this thing? You make a choice by the earlier table, I separated mechanical bioprosthetic valves. Then the surgeon also will upload a device, he gets what kind of size can fit into the patient. But is it appropriate? To find that, we need to have patient body surface area first, multiply it, avoid the minimal. Suppose you have taken the aortic valve, the minimal IOA is 0.85. You can have higher than that. If you multiply minimum IOA is required for that patient is 0.85 into 1.64. The body surface area get 1.3, 1.39, 1.4. So 1.4 is should be the reference index reference area for the valve you're putting in. If it's lesser than that, you can go to this valves, aortic and prosthetic valves. You can see as per the occluder what size of what is fitting into the patient, and then check. So 1.4, 1.4, this can go accordingly. You can check what kind of valve what size of valve needs to go into the patient. Other thing is that you take the reference area of the valve and you just divide the body surface area. Anything for a particular size of root, anything more than 0.82, you just go ahead, all greens are okay, and all reds less than 0.85 for the aortic question that we're talking of is not good. So now we have evaluation of prosthetic aortic valve. So how do you now we have a native prosthetic valve which has been dysfunctional, and you need to evaluate it. So we need to have it shows higher gradients. So what do you do? How do you evaluate it? There are two types of flow dependent independent parameters, flow dependent parameters. You basically find a V max, maximum velocity. Here anything on this red box is the severe stenosis and severe obstruction. So you find the mean gradients, mean max, the EOA, effective orifice area for that valve, as you can get here. You can find the DVI right here, anything less than 0.2 is severe stenosis. And if you compare the PPM with this, you see in PPM, only the index orifice area is reduced, but DVI remains normal. Here the DVI is slightly reduced as the valve gets stenosed. Also, the effective orifice area is much more reduced than more than 2 or 3 standard deviation from the reference area. Also, this reciprocal radiography, the drop in the difference between the EOA and the measured the reference value will be more than 0.35. So all this indicates severe stenosis. One more thing what I want to see is the continuous Doppler. You put the Doppler plus prosthetic valve and the shape of this. You get a more rounded shape. It's more denser that is more severe stenosis, more rounder that is more severe stenosis. And normal valves generally, when there's no obstruction, will have early peaking and a triangular pointed shape out here. Here a more rounded shape. So what are we finding? We are finding the AT acceleration time. Lower acceleration time means there's no obstruction and you're reaching a peak very quickly. So 80 milliseconds less is good. 100 milliseconds and more is not good. What happens if there's low EF? Then you will have lesser gradients and the acceleration time may not, 80 alone might not be enough. So we have got to do a ratio between 80 and 80. This is the algorithm got used. Index over area is used to get ODPPM. Structural valve defects with structural valve defects along with DVI and normally these things it shows that it's an intrinsic effect. If the DVI and is normal, still the grade is high, it just shows transfer gradients are higher. This is pulmonary VGUT here. You can see the evaluation of aortic VGUT. The central state, you can have like visa, vena contracta can be measured. You can have the ERO measurements and reversal of flows in the diastolic descending aorta can also indicate the severe aortic VGUT. On the left, you can see the paravalvular, mild and severe paravalvular regurgitation. Any circumference involvement more than 30% indicates the paravalvular regurgitation and severe paravalvular regurgitation. This is the flowchart for showing the similarly mitral valve obstruction. You find the flow dependent EOA, peak velocity, mean gradient, EOA, etc. You find this thing and you get this thing. This is the algorithm similarly for the mitral regurgitation. You got to see that technical EO calculation, EOA here, intrinsic defect here, and higher gradient without any normal EOA and GI means it is this thing. There are hydrodynamic profiles. The vital riggers here, if you see central riggers here, you can have apply the Vina contractor, apply EROA, effective rigger, if you see that these are on the left hand side, these are all showing you parallel riggers, like the Hastings here is a 3D image of this thing, and your pulmonary running flow, Doppler pattern reversal here. The dicaspal wall, similarly, you can have these are the obstructions you can see. Yes, you evaluate the gradients at tricuspid and pulmonary regurgitation to evaluate this thing, to evaluate whether the stenosis is severe or not. One of the slides I did before finishing the last slide, I would like to highlight more than you see this one, there's an area done, but you have a defect out here. This is severe, this is not a parallel leak, this is a severe mitral valve regurgitation after an area. In the left hand side, there is a MVR done, but there is USI aortic regurgitation here. So here there is a suture line gone into the mitral defect while doing the AVR, and here while doing the MVR, and while doing AVR, you have since below the excess calcified, the swelling and damage the anterior defect. So you had to took into consideration the other valves also before concluding, and not just focus on the area. Thank you.
Now the session is open for discussion. Any questions?